Valentine's Day had always been my favorite time of the year. The city covered in red hearts, couples exchanging gifts, love declarations everywhere. I always thought it was beautiful. But that year was different. Since December, I had been receiving anonymous notes. At first, they seemed sweet, poems, compliments about my looks. But soon, they became unsettling. Someone knew my routine. "You looked beautiful in that blue dress today." My blood ran cold. I had worn blue that day. Then came the gifts, a red rose, a teddy bear holding a heart. And then something deeply personal, a lost earring I hadn't seen in weeks. How did this person get it? Fear started creeping into my bones. I began looking over my shoulder while walking home, double-checking my locks before bed. I knew someone was watching me. Whenever I left work, I felt a shiver down my spine. If I turned around, all I saw were fleeting shadows. On February 12th, I woke up to a note stuck to my window. My apartment was on the second floor. "Almost time for our day." A lump formed in my throat. How did they reach my window? I locked every door, shut the curtains, and called the police. Their response was disheartening. "Did they threaten you? Break into your home?" "No, not yet." "Then there's nothing we can do unless there's a direct threat, miss." On the night of the 13th, I stayed at my best friend Carolina's place. I needed to feel safe. We talked for hours, trying to figure out who it could be. "Maybe it's someone from work," Carol suggested. "Or someone following you online." I made my accounts private. But it didn't help. For the first time in weeks, I managed to sleep, until a noise woke me up in the middle of the night. My balcony door was open. My heart nearly stopped. Cold air seeped through the crack, but that wasn't what terrified me. Lying on the floor, right in the center of the room, was a bouquet of red roses. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I'm already here. Happy Valentine's Day." My body froze. My first instinct was to run to Carol's room, but before I could move, my bedroom door slammed shut on its own. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Busy. I tried calling Carol. No answer. The silence in the room felt heavy, suffocating. Then, I heard it. A low, dragged-out laugh. Summoning all my courage, I threw the door open and ran to Carol's room. She was lying still. "Carol!" She woke up, startled. "He's here!" Carol blinked, confused. "Who? What are you talking about?" I grabbed her arm, pulling her out the door. We ran to the car and drove away. When I finally stopped, I turned to her, still shaking. "You didn't answer my call." She frowned. My phone never rang. Silence filled the car. We both turned to look at my second-floor apartment. My bedroom light was still on. And then, we saw him. A shadowed figure standing on the balcony, holding the bouquet of red roses. The next morning, the police checked the place. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. The roses still lay on my bedroom floor. The officer seemed unimpressed. Probably a bad joke. But I knew. He had been there. He had found me. I never went back. Neither did Carol. But every year, on the night of February 13th, I feel him. Waiting.
I was never one to care much about Valentine's Day. While the world filled up with hearts and candlelit dinners, I preferred a quiet night at home. But that year felt different. Julia, my girlfriend, insisted we go out for a romantic dinner. Just this once, she said, flashing that smile that always made me give in. We booked a table at a cozy restaurant, and I spent the whole day excited. But Julia never showed up. At first, I thought she was just running late. I texted, called. Nothing. The waiter gave me a pitying glance as I fiddled with my napkin, waiting. An hour passed. Then two. That sinking feeling in my stomach grew stronger. This wasn't normal. Julia was always on time, and if something had come up, she would have let me know. I called her friends, her family. No one had seen her. That's when real fear began to take hold. I rushed to her apartment. The door was locked, the lights off. I called her name, knocked. No answer. I ran to the building's front desk and asked the security guard if she had come home. He frowned. She left early, but she hasn't returned. Something was very wrong. I called the police and explained everything. They told me it was too soon to report a disappearance. Wait 24 hours. Wait. Every minute felt like an eternity. The hours dragged on. Night came, and I was still sitting on my couch, staring at my phone. I called Julia again. Voicemail. I tried tracking her phone, but it was turned off. Panic wrapped around my chest like a vice. What could have happened? An accident? A kidnapping? Or, did she leave on her own? That last thought gnawed at me. The next day, I went to the police station again, demanding action. They filed the report but seemed indifferent. She might have gone on a trip without telling anyone. It happens. No. Not Julia. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I printed missing posters with her face and plastered them all over town. I posted online, begging for any leads. People started sharing. Julia's disappearance became news. Days passed. Nothing. No leads, no witnesses. The police did a basic search but, with no sign of foul play, it wasn't a priority case. I wasn't sleeping anymore. Every time my phone rang, my heart leapt. Every notification filled me with hope, only to crush me seconds later. The absence of answers was worse than any terrible truth I could imagine. Rumors started swirling. Some said Julia had run away. Others believed she had been taken by someone she knew. A few even suggested I was involved. The media didn't help. TV programs speculated wildly, twisting facts. I felt like a ghost, trapped in a nightmare that made no sense. Then, a clue surfaced. A security camera caught Julia on the night she vanished. She was walking a few blocks from the restaurant, alone. Suddenly, she stopped, turned around, as if she heard something. And then, she disappeared from the footage. as if she had never been there. The police reviewed the footage over and over, but there was no explanation. Then came the strange calls. My phone would ring in the middle of the night, but when I answered, there was only silence. Sometimes, faint breathing. Once, I swear I heard more. My name, whispered. I went to the police again, but there wasn't much they could do. Probably a prank call. But I knew it wasn't. On the 1-month anniversary of her disappearance, a new package was left at my door. Inside was a single item, Julia's necklace. The one I had given her. Cold, metallic, with a heart-shaped pendant. Covered in dirt. And attached to it, a note. She's waiting for you.
I never meant to buy the Valentine. It was one of those moments where something catches your eye and suddenly, you can't look away. The antique shop was tucked between modern buildings, looking like a relic from another time. I pressed my face against the window, my breath fogging the glass, and there it was, an impossibly delicate Victorian Valentine that seemed to be calling my name. My name is Elena Richards, and I'm a researcher. Not the paranormal kind, mind you. I study human behavior, psychological patterns. But that day, something changed. The Valentine looked different from any object I'd ever seen. It wasn't just paper and ink. It was alive with something I couldn't explain. Mr. Thornbridge, the shop's owner, watched me with eyes that seemed to hold entire lifetimes of secrets. When he handed me the Valentine, his hand shook. I noticed dried remnants of what might have been blood along its delicate edge. Most people would have dropped it. I couldn't. I've always been fascinated by objects that carry stories. Not just historical artifacts, but things that seem to hold emotional memories. This Valentine was different. It vibrated with an energy that defied rational explanation, like it was breathing, remembering. That night, I learned her name was Elizabeth Carmichael. A young woman from the late 1800s whose love story ended in tragedy. Rejected brutally on Valentine's Day, she had taken her own life, clutching this very Valentine in her hand. The local historical records were explicit about her final moments. The whispers started soon after. Soft at first, like distant conversations just beyond my hearing. I'd wake up with tears streaming down my face, feeling a grief so profound it couldn't possibly be my own. Elizabeth's emotions were seeping into me, transforming my reality. Photographs around the Valentine began to change subtly. I'd see a woman in Victorian dress reflected in mirrors, her movements just at the edge of perception. My rational mind fought against what my senses were experiencing. But the evidence was mounting. I contacted Dr. Marcus Holloway, a colleague who studies paranormal psychological phenomena. He was fascinated by my description, viewing the Valentine not as a haunting, but as a complex emotional artifact. Some traumas, he told me, are so intense they transcend individual experience. As Valentine's Day approached, the paranormal activity intensified. Rose petals would appear mysteriously, always arranged in perfect heart shapes. Furniture would move when I wasn't looking, creating patterns that felt deliberate, meaningful. I was no longer just observing, I was becoming part of Elizabeth's story. The line between my consciousness and hers began to blur. Her memories became my memories. Her pain became my pain. I understood now why some spirits attach themselves to objects. They're not trapped. They're searching. Searching for understanding, for resolution. On the night of February 14th, everything changed. The Valentine was no longer just an object. It was a portal, a living testament to unresolved human emotion. Elizabeth wasn't haunting me, we were merging. My research had always suggested that paranormal experiences were psychological projections. But this was different. This was real. This was a consciousness reaching across time, seeking connection. The cultural fascination with haunted objects suddenly made sense. They weren't just curiosities. They were windows into human emotion, into the profound depths of love and loss that define our existence. As midnight approached, I realized I was no longer just Elena Richards. I was also Elizabeth Carmichael. Our experiences, our pain, our unresolved passion, they were becoming one. The Valentine sat silently, its mission complete. Some stories don't end. They transform. Some loves don't die. They wait. And some Valentines carry more than just words. They carry souls.